Hi, everybody. Welcome to Capital to the Coast BNI. My name is Mike Manning. Each week, we bring you a local small business success story between our 41 chapters from Mebane all the way to the coast in Wilmington. And if you're not familiar with BNI, it is Business Networking International, the world's largest networking organization. And each week, our members are there to help other people make money because we follow the giver's gain rule that the more you give, the more you gain. So that's our goal each week. And our local small business success story this week was incorrectly scheduled by me. So you get me this week because I thought today was the 16th and it's only the 9th, but that's okay. I still want to come in and share a good story on how not to buy a business and some things to think about. Have a good story from way back when. But I did want to thank everybody for the support for the show. Love coming in here each week. I think this is episode number 247. And I thank you all for the support on this because we would not be here without you. So here is what not to do when you want to buy something that you haven't studied correctly yet. So we were living in, this was 2004 to 2006. We were living in Daytona Beach, and I was working at the Daytona International Speedway, and then moved over to run a performing arts center down there, and I was getting the entrepreneurial itch. My brother has been a small business owner since, I think, the mid-'90s, and he and I have always talked about doing something together. We get along real well. Our skill sets are different. I like talking and getting out there and networking and things like that, and he doesn't like that at all. He just wants to sit at a computer and make the business work. He's very good with numbers. He's very good with margins. He's very good with research about what will work and what won't work. We eventually went on, when I moved back here to Raleigh in 2009, we eventually went on to purchase a commercial cleaning company and then started a pest control business. So we have done stuff. It's a lot of fun. Love working with him. But back in Daytona, I had met this commercial broker at some networking events, and we got to talking, and I told him, look, I want to get started in the entrepreneurial world. And so we got to talking about things, and I needed something that I didn't have to do 9 to 5. And so he told me he had a listing for a laundromat in Central Florida. Now, here was the first step I didn't factor in. It was about 40 minutes from my house. And, when you get excited, you're like, oh, that won't be too bad until you have to do it for about a week. Yeah, you got problems. So that was the first red flag I blew through. So don't do that. You got to factor in everything. And then, so we started talking. I went and checked it out. The numbers were good. It really was. I'm not a machine guy, so I can't fix stuff. So I knew that would be a problem. That didn't turn out to be one because didn't have to do many repairs on very many machines. So thankfully, that didn't cost me any additional money. But again, I was not prepared. If one of the machines broke down, there's no way I could fix that. I could probably open something and replace a belt, but other than that, that was a problem. So we got to talking, kept talking. My wife was okay with it. The numbers made sense, and it was easy enough for me. I could go after work in the evening. This was back in the day, and I believe it's still the laundromats. A lot of them are still people pay with quarters. So twice a week, I would go there and unload all the money from the machines, drive to my bank, and loudly dump $1,000 worth of quarters into the machine in the lobby of the bank. And there's no way for you to send out the signal to everyone, don't look at me. I know it's loud, don't look at me, but this is the only option I have. I was not about to roll quarters. Not going to happen. When I found out they had a machine that all I have to do was dump quarters in there, nice. So then I would dump all the quarters, anywhere from 600 to 1,000, bucks a week probably. And then they would give me the cash, and then I would go replenish the change machine, put all the dollar, the ones, fives, tens, 20s in there. So, or excuse me, Yeah. So, but taking the quarters out was a lot of fun, and that didn't seem to be a problem. But here's where I got into trouble, and here's the first piece of advice I give everybody. You find an idea and something you want to do, great. Okay, so you need to do your homework. Um, but there was nobody representing me, the buyer. The broker I knew was representing the seller, and they'd been friends for a long time. As an older couple, they were ready to sell. And so the broker's name is Steve, and I thought it was a good deal. The problem I had was I didn't run it by anybody I trusted that knew more than I did, and that was my brother. And I should have done that because my brother has owned numerous businesses, and he has passed on numerous businesses because in business, the best advice he's ever given me is don't love something that doesn't love you back. So if the numbers don't work, don't buy it. If the logistics don't work, don't buy it. If you can't do a lot of the work starting out, don't buy it. And I told him a couple of times that I'd been talking to this guy about it, but I never ran anything by him because he would have said, "Why are you buying this?" And you have to have that person that gives you nothing but the truth, and you got to listen because he would have grilled me over and over again. Why are you driving 40 miles a day? Is there a laundromat closer to you? And the answer was probably yes. And he would say, what happens if what happens if 8 of your dryers go out? And now people can wash their clothes, but now they got to wait in line to dry them because I think we had about 40 machines. And we had some of those real big ones where people could dump like a month's worth of clothes in there. And some of those were for industrial use. Had a couple of accounts from local businesses that had linens. And so I would just, restaurants, party planners, things like that. So I kind of knocked on their door and, started getting some of their business. But he would have asked me what happens because he always says the first thing he looks at is what's the worst that could happen. Is if this business went out of business today, could I still survive? What am I losing? What do I have to give up? And so he would have asked me that if 8 dryers went down, what would you do? How would you make your clients happy on the busiest times, which was usually Friday night, Saturday, and Sunday? And they could wash their clothes, but then they had to let them sit around and for 10 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes before they could get a dryer. He would have asked me that. And then he would have also asked me, how are you going to fund it? Which I was able to get into it. Okay. Wasn't the worst thing in the world. And then he would have asked me, what's your exit plan? No, I had none. I was so happy to have a business, and I didn't care how far I had to drive. I didn't care what I didn't know. One of the things I did do, there was a bathroom in there, and I retiled the walls. Got those little tiles and put them in there. You put paste it. I'm using the wrong words because I'm not technical, okay? But the paste, the glue, whatever you put on the wall there, and then you put the little tiles in there, and then you put the spacers in there. And my friends laughed at me because I'm not a fix-it guy. My wife is. She put our gas grills and our ceiling fans together, and I do the laundry and the shopping and stuff like that. And I did that all by myself to prove a point, and they all laughed and called me lucky. But I saved money because I did it myself, and those are the things somebody would have asked you to do, or my brother would have asked about me. Had a lady there that would come in probably 3 days a week from 9 to 2, and people could drop off their laundry and we'd do it for them. There's an extra fee, but she would wash them and then she would fold them and they'd come by and get them. And so that worked out pretty well. Didn't get a chance to maximize that too much because she didn't really want to work any more hours than that. She's about 70, very good, in good shape. Uh, Enjoyed working with clients, but wasn't interested in working much more than about 15 or 18 hours a week. So should I plan to hire someone else to do that? So I always have somebody there for the most part to do that. Plus it was a 24/7 laundromat, totally open whenever you wanted to go in. and I had to buy some cameras, which was a good investment, and that worked out well. Never had any problems with anything. That laundromat had been there, I think it was about 40 years, so it was well established. But the problem was I didn't run it by my brother. And then as time went by, it's like, I got to drive over there and things like that. So then the other thing you try to figure out is how are you going to market it? So, things related to houses we can market, roofers, landscapers, painters, residential cleaners. We can market those because usually you can find houses, you can find the people there, you can talk to them, you can get that. But how do you get word out for a laundromat in a small town? We're one of two there. So, we were doing business. Like I said, the numbers were good, but I didn't really know what to do to market a laundromat. Because what do? Go knocking door to door and tell people? So, ran a little ad in a local newspaper. But I knew the growth side was on the commercial side. But there just weren't that many businesses in town to grow that way. And so I found all the restaurants and, anybody that dealt with linen, I could clean for them. And some came with us and some didn't. So that was the biggest problem right there. But I enjoyed it. It was a good business, turned out to be okay. And I think I had it for about 2 years. Took the kids up there occasionally on weekends to go get money. They had a good time with that because there was a fast food joint in the same strip center we were in. So I told them we'd get lunch on the way out, and they enjoyed I had them count quarters for me for a while, and they enjoyed that. But the lesson for me was, did I do my homework on purchasing a business? So I went through a couple of red flags. One is there was nobody there to represent me. And so if you're going to buy a business or a house, don't let anybody ever play both sides, represent the seller and the buyer, because at the end of the day, they've got to pick one. They're not going to make both of them happy. If the two people disagree on a price, somebody's going to be unhappy if they have to move off the price they want to pay or receive. So that was the first problem. But find somebody that will tell you the honest truth, like my brother. And I would have been better off because I wouldn't have bought it. I probably would have found another one closer to home and run it better. And it wouldn't have been, the exit plan got a little bit messy because they knew I wanted to sell. Wasn't in over my head, but I was somewhere I didn't need to be. So they kind of knew that. And I have some friends that say that I bought a lesson, a valuable lesson. I didn't buy a business. I bought a valuable lesson, but it is paid off for me down the road. Because any other business I've been in with someone else. And I'm much better protecting your money and thinking through this with you than I am with me, because when you're by yourself, it's like most of us small business owners do, I'll do that when I get home tonight. And you get home at 7 o'clock, you're tired, and that's when you get behind on things. But that's what you do, especially when you're excited to do it for the first time. So find somebody that's going to look out for you and give you the honest truth. I know everybody probably has that friend that when you call them, they're like, "Do you really want my answer?" It's like, "Yes, I do," because some people think they want the truth, but they really don't, because they don't want to know. They don't want to hear from somebody like, "You really made a bad decision." So, but my brother was a big help as I was trying to get out of that. He helped me a little bit figuring out on some negotiations and things. And I told him next time, I said, if I ever buy anything again, man, I am calling you and you're going to tell me yes or no. And that's what he does. He's wonderful. He will tell me exactly what he would do, why or why not he would do it. And then he would say, but this choice is up to you. I would buy it or I wouldn't buy it if it was just me, but this is up to you. So if you want to buy it, here are the pitfalls. You can do that. But yeah, that I had no exit plan, and if I'd had an exit plan, things probably would have gone a little bit better. But again, and I had nobody representing me as well, so I sold it back to the previous owner. He did well. I didn't do as well as I needed to, but so um, yeah. So I never did track the mileage It was on a 2-lane road. It was easy ride. They had where would I always stop? There's a couple of that's back when I was drinking Biggie Diet Cokes, which 64 ounces. Man, yeah, and you're on 2-lane roads. There's not many places to stop. Yeah, so you get that, and you're trying to get home as quick as you can because you already drank 42 ounces of Diet Coke. But back then I think it was 99 cents maybe, and that for 99 cents, most of us will buy just about anything. But it was a good lesson. So once that happened, then I was talking to a friend of mine in Daytona Beach. We talked for a while about getting into a business, and we looked at laundromats because it is a good business. It's recurring revenue. A lot of them don't have to be staffed, but you got to know what you're doing with the machines. So when you're looking at a business like that, what can I do, and what do I need to outsource? And I knew that I couldn't fix anything. And again, at the end of the day, probably shouldn't have bought it. Didn't dramatically alter our next few months after I sold it back to them, but probably was not the way to go. But so anyways, if you're starting a business, those are the things you can control because, okay, I don't want to start a business where I have to fix something because I'm not going to do that, right? Do you want to start a service business that you show up somewhere and you do something instead of buying, having to buy some office space or buy big machines to start with? How do you, if you're in the landscaping world or the painting world, how do you get started for not necessarily the least amount of money, but somewhere where you can get into it and you don't have to drop, 55, 65,000 bucks. Do you have a small truck versus a big truck? Do you have some painting equipment? Do you have a friend that could help you? If you want to just start out painting one room at a time, that's fine. And then you get 2 rooms, and then eventually the goal is to get the whole house. That's what you want. But you got to start out one room at a time. And if you have, a bigger job and you got your friend like, hey, on Saturdays, I can probably help you for a couple hours. That's a good way to go. But those are the things you need to look at if you're looking at getting into a business. And I'm sure some of you listening, either you have or you've had a friend that it didn't go well. And hopefully you learned something from that. So I don't know, Amnon, you got any good stories, any valuable lessons you bought?
I never bought a business. I always built them.
And the equipment too, right?
Yeah, everything. I mean, I know how to work on computers, so
Yeah.
it was no big deal to do all that. But yeah, I never bought a business.
Yeah. And that's why my brother and I bought the commercial cleaning business because I could clean and I could manage it and I could hire the people, and that worked out well. He would help when I needed him, but that wasn't his role in the business. Right. And so the pest control worked out well. We had partnered with somebody outside of the triangle that wanted to move into the triangle, and we, worked out a deal that we would go get business. He would train us. And so that worked out pretty well because, pest control, I could do that as well. But yeah, fixing machines. Wish I'd have known you back then. I would have called you.
Oh well,
You could have fixed a dryer, right?
depends what it does. I mean, I fixed ours to replace the element, heating element, so mounts, wheels, things like that.
Oh
But
yeah, yeah,
yeah, but you need there's no doubt you need to know how to do it
yeah,
because you cannot have somebody come in to do it and pay them what?
yeah, yeah.
I mean, it's
Your
going to take
profit.
a lot
Yeah.
of quarters to
Oh yeah.
recover that.
Oh yeah. Yeah. You don't want to pay somebody your profit if you don't have to.
Yeah.
So it's good to kind of like if you're buying a house, you need a pro and a con column. Perfect size, not quite the neighborhood, or love the neighborhood, but I wish there was a third bedroom in there, something like that. And you just figure out what you can live with and mainly what you can live without.
Yeah.
And what, is the school system or the school district the number one thing you're looking for? Or is the business, I need something I can do on the side? Because a lot of people have a side hustle, which for a number of folks, it's turned into their business, which is wonderful. But you have to figure out, okay, I work 9 to 5. I want to start this side hustle. So how many hours can I devote to it? How much money am I properly funded? That's the other thing. If you're going to buy into a business, are you properly funded? But on the side hustle, all right, what if I get a call and somebody needs this done between 9 and 5? Do I have any flexibility? During COVID, you could because most of us worked at home. But that's the other thing on a side hustle is uh, what happens if I get a call when I can't go, or if they start calling me during my regular 9 to 5 job? Is that going to raise any red flags? Am I going to get into any trouble if I start taking calls that aren't related to the work of the people that are paying me? So you got to figure that out. And then eventually with your side hustle, all right, it will be your business when you match your current income. And that means insurance, all the things that your company, if you're working for someone else, all the things they pay you for, your salary, you get an auto allowance, do you get insurance, all of that stuff. You have to match everything to the penny, and you should do it for about 3 to 6 months to understand the consistency of it. Then okay, I'm getting close or I'm ready to go. But again, some people, they'll start a side hustle and they'll be making $800 the first month, and then $1,300 the second month, and then $1,900 the third month, and they think, oh, it's just going to grow every month. And then they jump ship right then, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, this isn't growing as fast as I thought, or I didn't realize everything my company paid me that now I have to cover, because insurance, folks, it is not cheap for a small business owner, not cheap at all. And now you have to have commercial insurance. So now you're paying your car insurance. Now you're paying commercial insurance. Now you're paying your health insurance if your spouse doesn't work, if you're not on their plan. So you got to factor in things like that. And so those are good. Those are fun things to look at for a side hustle. Most entrepreneurs, I have one working now. Most entrepreneurs are always like, okay, what's next? I want to do this. I'm thinking about doing that, but they're always trying to find something or create something or figure something out, which is wonderful. That is the entrepreneurial spirit. All right, what else could I do? Or I've got this. How do I grow it? Or I've got this. Then this adjacent business would complement it. So how do I work that too? Especially if it's a side hustle. So those are things you got to figure out. But yeah, so go in properly funded. Pretend like you're not going to make any money for 90 to 180 days. And that'll take the stress off of you. We've talked with a number of guests on the show here that being properly funded allows you to make correct decisions instead of, well, I better drive 48 miles to make $200 because I need $200. And then you're getting in trouble. Because if you were properly funded, you would have turned that job down because you'd have known just the time alone to drive 48 miles, whether it's city or interstate, because then you got to drive it back. So if the job takes you to, hour and a half, and it's an hour and a half of drive time, now you're into 3 hours. So now you're down to $65 an hour, and you didn't fill up with gas. So there's another, however much money. So things like that you need to think about when you're not properly funded. That's what gets a lot of small businesses into trouble from the beginning is they're not properly funded. So they have to make decisions they wouldn't normally make if they were up and running and had everything funded. So anyways, that is all I got for today, folks, is my story on what not to do. So again, let's recap. Be properly funded. Have somebody to check your work. You may love it, and it makes perfect sense to your enthusiasm, but it doesn't make sense for the bottom line in your life, especially you have a spouse or a partner or a family, and they got to have buy-in as well. So if you make sure those two things are good, you'll probably have a decent shot at purchasing the right businesses or starting the right businesses. So if you ever have any questions on that stuff, I've been putting my email up here, openmictalk@gmail.com. Send me a note. I'll answer some questions for you. I'll I'll be a sounding board for you if you have a couple questions on that. Happy to help on there. So I think that's it. I thought you maybe had one or two, but you're smarter
No, I
than I am,
don't. I
so
mean,
I
I
know.
really don't.
No, I know.
And I don't know that 3 months is
That's where
long
you have to
enough.
start, right? But you got to start at least there. You really should go a year is the smart
Absolutely.
way to go.
Yeah.
But if you've been doing it for a little bit and you've got money coming in, that may be able to speed it up a little bit. But yeah, you should really look at a year.
Yeah, I mean, you start a business and selling trinkets.
Yeah.
And you're starting it in November.
Yeah.
And here comes Christmas. You don't think
yeah.
about it.
Yep.
Oh, wow, look at the business. But then here comes January and
Yep.
there's nothing.
Yeah.
You can't. I mean, you have to
Yep.
give the business a chance and
Yep.
don't rush.
Yeah, and you also have to learn your slow seasons.
Yep.
It's like, wow, because if you buy it or start it in the busy season, you're like, wow,
Yep.
what a great idea. And then March rolls around, you realize, oh, that's right, spring is the slow season. And then, March, April, and part of May or, something like that. Not too good. So, but yeah, find somebody to run all these ideas by that has a knowledge of business. Instead of like, oh, yeah, you'd be really good at that. Well, that's not the question you ask. That's not, you may be a really good photographer, but you may not be the one to start a photography business. Okay. So, but ask for the questions, ask the questions you need the real answers to, and you got to have thick skin because if the people you trust tell you this is not a good idea, you probably need to listen to them because they're looking out for you. They're not trying to tell you don't do it because they have a plan of starting that. Not the case. So if you trust them and they tell you, this doesn't sound right for you. And not every job is, not every business is. So you learn along the way. So, but anyways, I appreciate everybody being here today. My apologies for not having a guest. We'll most definitely have one next week. And I will see everybody next week on Capital to the Coast BNI.
You are tuned to the Nissan Communications Network. If you tuned in too late, you can always watch each program in its entirety or download an MP3 audio file of it in the archives section at nissancommunications.com. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel, follow us on Twitter, and like us on Facebook. Sponsored by StreamingGear.com and DeltaForce.net.